These are instructions on using MS Access to compare tutoring and grades data, presented by Northeast Lakeview College Testing Center in San Antonio, Texas. At the end of each semester, coordinators will usually have two sets of data available to them. They might have a list of students who attended tutoring, and they can usually also pull a list of all students and their grades. Now, coordinators will need a way to compare these two sets of data for statistical analysis. It will be useful to measure effectiveness of their tutoring center by being able to see what grade students who attended tutoring received and what grade students who did not attend tutoring received. So we need a simple way to compare these two sets of data. One of the ways to do this is to put this data into Microsoft Access 2007 and then use queries to combine the data and pull up various sets of data. In these instructions, we will show how to combine the two lists to get grades for students who did attend tutoring and students who did not attend tutoring. These instructions are made assuming that coordinators can receive this data using Microsoft Excel. But coordinators can also receive this data as Microsoft Access or text files, and it will still work. Once we pull the data into Microsoft Access, and once we compare and get queries and get grades of the students, we will then use pivot tables to get grade distribution lists for comparison. So the following are access instructions for importing the data, comparing the data, and using pivot tables. Coordinators will open Microsoft Access, click the Start button, click All Programs, click Microsoft Office, and Microsoft Office Access 2007. You can start with a blank database by clicking at the top left or double-clicking. Give the database a name and a location. Spaces and long names are allowed. Click the Create button. Microsoft Access will start with a new table. We will not need this table, so we can close it by clicking the X, which is the second X from the top, or you can leave it open. And now we will import our Excel files into Microsoft Access. We will click the External Data tab. We will go to the Import group and click the Microsoft Excel command or icon. We will click Browse to find our Excel files that we want to import. First, we will import List X. There are going to be two files to import, and I'm going to show you List X. We will double click on that file, and we will choose the first option, import the source data into a new table in the current database, and then click OK. If your Excel file has more than one worksheet, be sure to select the correct worksheet and click the Next button at the bottom. Be sure that the first row contains columns headings. Checkbox is checked and click Next. We will not need a field ID, so you can click Do Not Import. If you leave the field, it doesn't hurt anything either. Click on the Social Security number or Client ID or Banner ID heading and make sure this is a text file. So go up to Data Type, click the drop down and choose Text and click Next. We will not need a primary key, so click in the last radio button that says No Primary Key and click Next. And the next choice is to name your table that's going to be in the Access database. Our Excel file was already named List X, and we will leave that as the file name. List X is the students who attended tutoring for the semester. And then click Finish. and then click close. Now we will do the same thing for the other Excel file. We will go to the import group and click the Excel command or icon. We will browse for our next Excel file, which is list C. We will click open. We will choose the first radio button and click OK. We will select the correct worksheet. First row contains column headings. And click next. And be sure to check the student ID or social security number or banner ID and make that a text field. And click next. We do not need a primary key, so click no on the primary key and click next. And our table is already named list C, so we'll click finish. And click close. After importing both Excel lists, you will now have two tables in your database. List X has the students who attended tutoring, and List C has all the students and their grades. We will now use queries to pull data from both tables. We're going to click on the Create tab and go to the Other group and click on Query Design. We want to get data from both tables, so be sure that the Tables tab is selected. Hold down your Control key, click this List C, continue holding your Control key, and click List X, because we're going to bring both of those into our Query Design window. Then click the Add button, and then click the Close button. We want List X to be on the left-hand side before we begin combining our data. And to move the tables or the list around, just click with your left side of your mouse at the top blue area, hold and drag. So I'm going to grab List C and move it to the right. Now we have List X on the right-hand side and List X on the left-hand side and List C on the right-hand side. Now we want to combine our student ID, social security numbers, banner IDs, and our courses. So we will go over to List X. We will left click on social security number, hold down the left mouse button, and drag over to the corresponding social security number in List C. And we should see a line connecting the two fields. We will now do the same thing with course. Left click on course, hold down the left mouse button, and drag to the corresponding course in the other file. Now we have social security number or student ID and course related. Now we will define that relationship by double clicking on each line. Double click on the first line and choose the first option, number 1. Only include rows where the joined fields from both tables are equal, and click OK. And then do the same thing with the second line and click OK. Now we will grab data from List C and put it down at the bottom here in our Query Design window. And you can click and drag the data that you want, or you can double click and it will go down into the Query Design area. The data that you choose to put in your design window is optional, but we at least need the social security numbers or student ID and course and grade. So we will double click on those items: social security number, course, and grade. Once at least those three fields are at the bottom in your Query Design window, then we will go to the Results group at the top left of your screen and click the Run command. You now have a new query that shows all the students who attended tutoring and their corresponding grade for the course in which they received tutoring. We will save this list as B1. Click the Office button, click Save As, Click Save Object As, and we will name this List B1. Or if you want to be more descriptive, you can call it List B1, Students Who Attended Tutoring and Their Grades. As before, spaces are allowed and long names are allowed. And be sure that this is saved as a query, and click OK. Now we're going to create List B2, which will be students who did not attend tutoring. So while List B1 is open, we'll go to the Home tab, we'll go to the View group, and we'll click on the Design view, which is available right here. And once again, we're going to double click on the black lines and we're going to change the relationship. We'll double click on the first line, and this time we'll choose option 3 and click OK. Option 3 is include all rows from list C and only those rows from list X where the joined fields are equal. Then we will click on the second black line and choose option 3 and click OK. And in addition to the fields that are already in our query design window, we are going to add Social Security number from list X. And we would like Social Security number to be on the far left, so this time we're going to left click and drag that down to make it the first field in the query design window. So now at the bottom you'll see that Social Security number or student ID from list X is your first field, and then from list C you'll have the student ID of Social Security number, the course, and the grade. And now you will go back up to the results window, which is in your design tab, and click the run icon or command once again. You will now see a list that has some Social Security numbers or student IDs on the left and some missing. The ones that are missing, those are the students who did not attend tutoring. So we're going to go back and modify this query once more with a null command so we can see only the students who did not attend tutoring. So while we're in the Home tab, we're going to go back to the Views group and click the Design view. We're going to go down to our Query Design window at the bottom, and in the Criteria row, we're going to type the command null, N-U-L-L, and type Enter. And now we will click the Run command once again. And now we have a list of the students who did not attend tutoring and their grades. And we will save this as List B2. We will click the Office button. We will click Save As. We will click Save Object As. And we will call this List B2. Or if you want to call an extended name, you can call it List B2, students who did not attend tutoring and their grades. We now have two sets of data, and using pivot tables we will get grade distributions for each list, list B1 and B2. Let's highlight list B1 by clicking once with our left mouse button. Then we'll go to our menu and click the Create tab. Then in the Forms group we will click the More Forms drop down command and click Pivot Table. We will click in the middle of the white area, the one that says Drop Totals or Details Fields here, and that will pull up our pivot table field list. Now we will choose the items that we want in our pivot table. We will click once on Course with our left mouse button. We will drop down into our choice areas at the bottom, and we will choose Row Area from the drop down and click Add To. And this adds the fields to our row. Next we will click Grade and drop down to Column Area and click Add To. And this makes a grade column in our pivot table. Next we want to count the amount of each grade received for each course. So we will left click on Grade once again, and this time we will add grade to our data area and click Add To. And now we can close our pivot table field list and take a look at our grade distribution. If you look closely at our grade distribution list, you could see that for the students who did attend tutoring, for English 1301 there was 1A and 1B. You can see that there were 4 withdrawals, grand totals, and so on and so forth. So we have a pivot table for our list B1. You will do exactly the same thing for list B2. And before you do that, you can go ahead and save this. You can click the Office button, click Save As, click Save Object As. We'll save this as a form, and we could call this List B1 Grade Distribution. So you can come back to it. And once again, repeat the same procedure for list B2, and then you will have a grade distribution for the students who did attend tutoring and for the students who did not attend tutoring. Coordinators can now use the grade distributions along with other data analysis tools to assist in measuring tutoring effectiveness. This concludes the illustrated instructions on how to import grade and tutor data, how to use queries to compare that information, and then how to use pivot tables to get grade distributions. The following contains a summary of what we did. We pulled 2 lists, our tutoring list and our grades list, into Microsoft Access database. We pulled an Excel spreadsheet list, or 2 Excel spreadsheet lists, but text data and Microsoft Access database data can also be imported into MS Access. Once we had the data in our database, we ran a query using relationships so that we could get grades for both sets of data, students who did attend tutoring and students who did not attend tutoring. Once we got the 2 lists, then we used pivot tables to get grade distributions for both lists. Some notes to think about when you are pulling data. You want to make sure that your Social Security numbers or client ID numbers come through correctly. Sometimes if you have leading zeros, some of those may delete themselves from Microsoft Excel, so you want to watch that. Also, watch for data integrity. You want the data of both lists to match exactly. For instance, if one course uses a 3-digit identifier and another course uses a 4-digit identifier, you won't be able to compare the courses effectively. And make sure that the way you identify students is a number that won't be duplicated, such as a student ID or Social Security number. It's going to have to be unique to each and every student. And make sure that the number matches both lists exactly. For instance, you can't have a Social Security number on one list and a school ID on the other. Or if you have Social Security numbers on both lists, you have to have the same format. You can't have dashes in one number and not have dashes in the other. Note any outliers before importing data, especially if your tutoring list comes from students who sign in themselves. They might occasionally type in the wrong class, so you want to look for that. You might even have students who come in from other schools to get tutoring at your school, and you probably won't have the grades of those students. So just make sure that your data is exact and delete any outlying data that doesn't match correctly. One final note that I mentioned, the names of your tables, queries, and forms is arbitrary. You can name them whatever you want. Just name them something that's easy to refer back to. And remember that long names and spaces are accepted in MS Access. This concludes our presentation. Thank you.